What if I told you that just digesting your dinner could burn like 30% of the calories you just consumed?
Yeah. Or that you could restrict your sleep to maybe 3 hours, step onto a rugby pitch, and execute these really complex cognitive tasks
Hmm.
with basically zero performance decline.
Right, which sounds completely impossible. I mean, we usually think of our bodies as these fragile machines that just inevitably slow down, but the research points to a totally different reality.
It really does.
So, welcome to this custom deep dive. Today, we are taking a massive stack of sources. We've got clinical nutrition protocols, performance research, cognitive biohacking notes, and we're distilling all of that into a practical, no-nonsense blueprint tailored just for you.
And when you look at all these sources collectively, you realize they aren't just, isolated biological hacks.
Right.
We're examining everything from plate structure to heavy resistance training, even how to process hidden emotional trauma,
Yeah.
but they all converge on one single goal.
Which is optimizing how the human engine manages energy, right?
Yeah.
And building that baseline resilience against stress.
It's exactly optimizing the entire system.
And before we get into the weeds, I want to make sure you know we are focusing on actionable protocols here. We have specific dosages, exact routines, things you can apply immediately.
Real world application.
Right. So to optimize any biological system, you have to start with the baseline fuel. Let's begin with the very architecture of metabolic health. What actually goes on your plate?
Yeah, so the primary source here is the clinical work of Dominique Ludwig. She's an accredited nutritionist who developed what she calls the Triple 30 protocol.
Triple 30.
Right. The target is pretty elegant, but very biologically rigorous. It's 30 grams of protein and 10 grams of fiber per meal, while integrating 30 different plant-based foods over the course of a week.
I mean, weighing food and plugging macros into an app after every single meal sounds like a full-time job. I feel like most people would abandon that after, like, a week.
Oh, absolutely. Which is precisely why she translates this into a visual framework. She calls it the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plate structuring principle.
Okay, so you rely on your eyes, not a kitchen scale.
Yeah. Exactly. Step 1 is dedicating roughly a quarter of your plate to high-quality protein, so poultry, fish, eggs, cottage cheese, or tempeh.
Right.
Step 2 is filling a full half of the plate with vegetables. But the crucial distinction here is aiming for about 250 grams of what she calls hard vegetables.
Wait, hard vegetables? Like what?
Think red cabbage, broccoli, bell peppers, red onions. A watery garnish of iceberg lettuce, that does not count toward this metric.
So lettuce isn't really pulling its weight here.
Not at all. It's mostly water.
Okay, then we fill in the margins.
Yeah. Step 3 is healthy carbohydrates,
Whoa.
specifically whole grains as they appear in nature, sweet potatoes, bulgur wheat, lentils.
Which heavily contribute to that fiber target, I'm guessing?
You got it. Then step 4 introduces healthy oils, extra virgin olive oil, walnuts, avocado, and finally step 5 is just a serving of fruit integrated into the meal.
Let's dive into the mechanics of this because the 30% rule is fascinating to me. We all know protein builds muscle, but the clinical notes highlight this thermic effect.
It's a huge factor.
Right, so essentially breaking down the complex peptide bonds of protein requires so much enzymatic work from your liver and digestive tract that your body burns about 30% of the protein's calories just processing it.
It's literally a metabolic tax you pay simply by eating.
But if that's the case, is that dreaded midday craving, that overpowering urge to raid the pantry at 3 p.m., is that really just a failure of plate mathematics rather than, like, a failure of willpower?
It's entirely a biological math problem. I mean, when you combine highly satiating protein with dense soluble fiber from those hard vegetables, you are fundamentally altering your digestive mechanics.
Because it takes longer to break down.
Exactly. The fiber physically slows the transit time of food through your intestines, and that creates a literal mechanical stretch in your digestive tract.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and those stretch receptors fire signals right up the vagus nerve to the brain, releasing GLP-1 and sending this profound message of mechanical satiety.
So you stabilize blood glucose, halt the rapid insulin spikes, and just eradicate what clinicians call systemic food noise.
That constant background static telling you to go find sugar. Gone.
Ludwig's clinical notes highlight a really fascinating pattern with perimenopausal women. She refers to them as black belts in nutrition.
I love that term.
Right. Because they buy organic, they totally understand macros, but they were still dealing with sudden weight gain, severe fatigue, and these intense afternoon cravings.
Because they were committing one structural error right at the start of their day.
Skipping protein at breakfast.
Exactly. They'd swap it for something like a plain oat bowl, And when you do that, you trigger a massive glucose spike, followed by a crash.
And the body panics.
Right. It signals for fast-acting carbs to rescue your blood sugar, which leads straight to that afternoon sofa snacking.
But when she shifted their mornings to a triple 30 breakfast like Greek yogurt, heavily loaded with flax seeds, chia seeds, and blueberries, the sofa snacking just vanished.
80% of her program participants reported a massive reduction in cravings just by fixing that morning math.
That's incredible.
And if we pull back and look at the lifespan implications, hitting these protein targets is a major longevity strategy. You're actively combating sarcopenia.
Which is that involuntary loss of, what, 3 to 8% of your muscle mass every decade after 30?
Exactly. Preserving that muscle maintains your skeletal bone scaffolding. And the fiber from 800 grams of daily veggies prevents the accumulation of visceral fat.
That active inflammatory fat around your organs that drives cardiovascular disease. Okay, so we have the baseline physical energy stabilized, the glucose is flat, food noise is gone.
Right.
But physical fuel only goes so far when you're pushing the brain under extreme cognitive load or operating under, severe sleep deprivation. How do we force the cognitive engine to keep running?
This brings us to high-dose creatine buffering.
Now, the word creatine usually conjures up images of bodybuilders trying to pack on size in the gym.
Yeah, but this protocol is entirely focused on brain metabolism.
Right.
The baseline strategy is 5 grams of high-quality micronized creatine monohydrate daily. However, the overload protocol, which is designed for severe jet lag, sleep deprivation, or heavy cognitive demands, scales that up to 0.3 grams per kilogram of body weight.
Wow, so for the average person, that is like 10 to 15 grams a day, right?
Yeah.
Split into smaller doses and paired with sodium and magnesium for absorption?
Exactly.
The brain is essentially a metabolic furnace. I mean, it only accounts for 2% of our body weight, but burns through 20% of our entire energy budget.
It's incredibly demanding.
And normally, the brain runs on ATP, adenosine triphosphate. When a brain cell uses ATP for energy, it snaps off a phosphate molecule, leaving behind adenosine, and as that adenosine accumulates, it binds to receptors and creates sleep pressure.
Right. And when you restrict sleep, the brain enters a state of acute metabolic crisis. Acidity rises, ammonia levels increase, and the blood-brain barrier actually alters its transport mechanisms.
It changes how it lets things in.
Yeah. Under these stressed, deprived conditions, the brain acts like a dry sponge. It rapidly upregulates its transporters to pull in supplemental creatine from the bloodstream.
So if the brain is rapidly pulling this in to wake itself up and perform, I have to ask, why isn't creatine simply classified as a stimulant? What separates this from, drinking 3 cups of coffee or taking an amphetamine?
It comes down to how the energy is actually produced. Stimulants generally operate by masking fatigue. Caffeine physically blocks the adenosine receptors.
So the fatigue is still there.
Exactly. Your brain just can't feel it, which triggers the sympathetic nervous system and leaves you feeling tired but wired. Creatine doesn't mask anything.
Okay, so what does it do?
Once inside the brain, it's stored as phosphocreatine. It literally donates its phosphate group to those depleted ADP molecules, resynthesizing fresh, genuine ATP. You are creating actual cellular energy without taxing the nervous system.
It's generating real currency instead of just taking out a loan.
That's a perfect way to put it. Furthermore, synthesizing your own creatine naturally consumes about 70% of your body's methyl groups.
Wait, 70%?
Yes. And methyl groups are biochemical compounds critical for everything from DNA repair to neurotransmitter production. So when you supplement creatine, you spare that massive biochemical budget.
Oh, so your brain can suddenly redirect those methyl groups to produce dopamine and serotonin and detoxify cellular waste.
Precisely.
This perfectly explains Christian Cook's 2011 study on professional rugby players. He restricted their sleep to just 3 hours.
Brutal.
Right. And as expected, the placebo group saw a massive drop in complex skill execution. But the group given the creatine overload protocol showed 0 performance decline. Their brains executed tasks as if they had slept a full 8 hours.
And we see the same application in cognitive workers. Dan Party, a sleep and performance researcher, used a 10-gram daily creatine protocol to survive running a startup while simultaneously completing his PhD.
Talk about cognitive load.
Right. And he documented how it successfully bypassed the brain fog and word recall lapses that usually accompany chronic sleep restriction.
This sounds incredibly effective for surviving a brutal month at work. But pushing the brain at maximum capacity while sleep-deprived has to take a toll. Does relying on this energy buffer eventually lead to cognitive burnout?
Actually, the clinical data suggests the exact opposite. Creatine acts as a profound neuroprotective buffer.
Really?
Yeah, it guards the brain against hypoxia, oxygen deprivation, which occurs during microvascular aging or even frequent air travel.
Oh, wow.
And more critically, researchers are increasingly categorizing Alzheimer's disease as type 3 diabetes.
Type 3 diabetes.
Yes, because Alzheimer's is characterized by a profound energy failure and insulin resistance within the brain long before memory loss actually occurs. By directly supporting brain energy metabolism, creatine offers a biochemical shield against that exact type of decline.
Okay, so we've fueled the body, we've supercharged the brain's energy capacity, but human beings aren't just, biological calculator.
Definitely not.
Daily life, high performance, relationships, they all generate immense emotional friction. And if we don't actively clear out the mental cache, all the biological optimization in the world just gets bottlenecked.
It's a huge missing piece for a lot of people.
We have to address the psychological load, which involves a protocol pioneered by Dr. James Pennebaker, expressive writing as a mental antibiotic.
And the parameters of Pennebaker's protocol are non-negotiable. You find a completely private environment, set a timer, and write continuously for 15 to 20 minutes a day for 3 to 4 consecutive days.
And what are you writing about?
The subject matter must be a deeply upsetting life event, a profound ongoing conflict, or a major hidden stressor. You force yourself to explore your absolute deepest thoughts and emotions regarding this trauma.
But the sources highlight a really specific twist to this practice. You must write with the explicit, predetermined intention of destroying the document immediately after the timer stops.
Yes, you shred the paper, you set it on fire, or you permanently delete the text file.
And you also treat this like a literal course of acute antibiotics, right? You deploy this 2 to 3 times a year during periods of heavy emotional taxation. It is not designed to be a daily, year-round journaling habit.
Exactly. It's an acute intervention.
Well, I have to challenge the idea of destroying the text. Isn't the fundamental purpose of journaling to maintain a record of your thoughts, to look back months later and track your growth?
Not for this.
It just sounds like typing out a brilliant essay and then unplugging the computer before hitting save.
Well, let's use that computer analogy because it perfectly captures what is happening in the brain. Think of unresolved trauma or ongoing stress as background applications running on a computer.
Okay.
They drain the battery and consume massive amounts of RAM.
Yeah.
If you keep the journal, or if there is even a fractional chance another human being might ever read it, your subconscious automatically applies a filter.
Ah, I see.
You will subtly alter the narrative to make yourself appear more justified, more rational, or less vulnerable. By committing to immediate destruction, you completely bypass that subconscious self-censorship.
Why does bypassing that filter matter so much on a physiological level, though?
Because carrying unexpressed emotional trauma forces your autonomic nervous system to remain in a constant low-grade state of threat.
So your amygdala, the brain's fear center, is continuously firing.
Right. Emotional chaos is inherently abstract and fragmented. It loops endlessly in your mind. But when you force those abstract, terrifying emotions into written vocabulary and sentence structure, you force a cognitive framework onto them.
Oh, that makes sense. You're shifting the processing from the emotional amygdala into the logical prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
You give the chaos a definitive beginning, middle, and end.
Exactly.
You are literally closing the background applications to free up the working memory.
Precisely. By transforming a fragmented emotional loop into a linear narrative, you liberate vast amounts of cognitive bandwidth. This rapid reduction in load lowers systemic inflammation and actively prevents what psychologists call pseudo-dementia.
Pseudo-dementia.
Yeah, it's severe memory loss and cognitive decline caused entirely by unmanaged chronic anxiety.
The physical impact of this is staggering. Pennebaker's landmark 1986 trial took college students and put them through this 4-day writing protocol. Over the next several months, the students who wrote about their trauma visited the University Health Center for Physical Illnesses at half the rate of the control group.
A 50% drop.
A 50% drop in physical healthcare visits just from writing down a secret and destroying the paper.
It's wild, and Pennebaker later applied this to Holocaust survivors who'd carried the psychological weight of the camps as absolute secrets for decades, terrified of burdening their families.
Unimaginable stress.
And after translating their trauma into a structured, written narrative, a profound behavioral shift occurred. They finally began sharing their experiences openly with their children.
Wow.
Audio analyses of his subjects demonstrate that after this protocol, people laugh more frequently, they use more positive emotional vocabulary, and they reintegrate socially. Their biological systems are simply no longer paralyzed by suppressed stress.
Okay, so the mind is cleared, the working memory is back online, the nervous system is calm. Now we can take all of this optimized physical and mental energy and direct it toward building the ultimate metabolic sink, our physical muscle architecture.
Yes.
We are looking at failure proximity progressive resistance training.
Muscle tissue isn't just cosmetic, It is an active endocrine organ that dictates your trajectory of aging.
Right.
The protocol here synthesizes research from hypertrophy expert Dr. Brad Schoenfeld and metabolic specialist Dr. Joey Munoz. The baseline is 3 full-body resistance training sessions per week, hitting 5 fundamental movement patterns.
Okay, what are the 5?
A squat, a hip hinge like a deadlift, an upper body push, an upper body pull, and a knee flexion movement like a hamstring curl.
And the critical metric for success here isn't the amount of time spent in the gym, right? It's completing 10 hard sets per major muscle group per week.
Exactly.
And a hard set is defined entirely by proximity to failure. You must take the set to a point where you are only 1 to 2 repetitions shy of complete technical failure. The research refers to this as your reps in reserve, or RIR.
Which introduces the whole concept of effective reps. Dr. Schoenfeld's research demonstrates that the actual muscle-building stimulus only occurs during the final 4 to 5 repetitions of a set that approaches failure.
Really? Just the last few?
Yeah, that extreme mechanical tension is what forces the central nervous system to recruit high-threshold motor units, the large muscle fibers that otherwise just lay dormant.
So if the biological adaptation only happens during the last few reps, does that mean if I do a set of like 12 bicep curls, the first 8 reps are essentially just a warm-up sequence for the final 4?
From a strict neuromuscular adaptation perspective, yes.
That's crazy.
I mean, if you perform a set of 10 reps, but you could have easily completed 15, you have failed to provide the mechanical tension required to stimulate muscle protein synthesis.
Right.
Schoenfeld's data proves that a highly intense volume of just 4 to 6 genuinely hard sets per muscle group per week is the effective minimum dose. You can accomplish this in 2 brief sessions a week, provided the proximity to failure is authentic.
Dr. Joey Munoz highlights a case study involving a postpartum client who is doing hours of what he calls chronic cardio to lose weight. The excessive cardio was just chronically elevating her cortisol levels and breaking down whatever muscle she had left.
It's so common.
So he pivoted her protocol entirely, having her lift near failure just 3 times a week.
And the key to that pivot is tracking progressive overload, forcing the body to adapt by adding a fraction more weight or 1 more rep each session.
You can actually see it working when the speed of the barbell visibly slows down during those final effective reps.
Exactly. And for Munoz's client, the transformation was structural. She built dense muscle and shed visceral fat. Her body composition changed radically, even though the absolute metric on the scale barely shifted.
Because building this tissue isn't just about looking good in a t-shirt. The mechanical scaffolding it provides seems to be the ultimate insurance policy as we age.
It is the single most powerful defense mechanism we have against osteoporotic hip fractures.
Which are devastating.
Huge mortality driver. Heavy resistance training physically pulls the tendons against the bone, forcing the skeletal system to increase its bone mineral density.
And furthermore, this muscle acts as a massive sink for glucose, maximizing your insulin sensitivity and drastically lowering the risk of metabolic diseases like type 2 diabetes.
Exactly.
So we have built the muscle, fueled the brain, cleared the psychological cache. The final step is protecting this highly tuned engine from systemic degradation at the cellular level.
Right, the finishing touch.
Which brings us to a precision adaptogen, thymoquinone.
This compound is derived from black seed oil, or Nigella sativa. The specific protocol, formulated by naturopathic physician Dr. Michael Murray, calls for 500 to 1,000 milligrams daily.
But it's vital that the oil is standardized, right?
It is very important. It needs to contain exactly 3% thymoquinone and less than 2% free fatty acids, ensuring the volatile compounds haven't oxidized.
Instead of just reading a laundry list of benefits, let's look at how this compound actually behaves inside a stressed cell. First, it activates AMPK.
Right.
And think of AMPK as the cell's master fuel gauge. When it's activated, it tells the body to stop storing fat and start burning energy, drastically improving insulin sensitivity.
Yep.
Then you have its effect on NFKB.
And NFKB is essentially the cellular fire alarm. When it rings, it triggers a massive cascade of systemic inflammation, raising your C-reactive protein or CRP levels. Thymoquinone acts as a direct inhibitor to that alarm, silencing the inflammatory cascade before it spreads.
It also functions as a eubiotic in the gut, so rather than carpet bombing your microbiome like a traditional antibiotic, it selectively prunes away pathogenic bacteria while actively preserving keystone species like Akkermansia.
Which is crucial for maintaining the gut lining.
Right, but the most impressive mechanism is how it triggers the NRF2 pathway. Taking a standard vitamin C pill is like handing your body a weak antioxidant to fight a massive fire. But activating the NRF2 pathway is like teaching your cells to fish.
I love that analogy.
It reaches into your cellular genetics and prompts your own DNA to manufacture its own internal, highly potent antioxidant enzymes.
Teaching the cellular genetics to fish is exactly how a true adaptogen should function. It modulates the body's own defense systems. But precision dosing is critical here.
Oh, definitely.
Ben Greenfield, a well-known health researcher, attempted to aggressively manage heavy stress by taking a massive 2,000 milligram dose of black seed oil.
And Dr. Michael Murray actually had to intervene. Dropping a 2,000 milligram antimicrobial LAM into your digestive tract risks permanently deleting vital bacterial colonies.
Exactly. When Greenfield corrected his protocol to the precise 500 milligram standardized dose twice a day, the clinical markers shifted dramatically.
Like what?
Well, double-blind trials confirmed that this specific standardized dose dropped salivary and systemic cortisol levels by 22 to 44% in highly stressed individuals.
Wow.
And for Greenfield, it significantly improved his deep sleep architecture, boosted his heart rate variability, and maintained his systemic inflammation, his CRP levels, at effectively zero.
Which is how you directly combat inflammaging, that chronic low-grade cellular friction that actively accelerates the biological aging process.
Yes.
So let's step back and look at the blueprint we have assembled from these sources today. We started by silencing the background noise of food cravings by balancing the mechanics of digestion with the triple 30 plate. We bypassed sleep deprivation and generated raw cognitive ATP with high-dose creatine buffering. We performed a psychological factory reset, clearing out the working memory with the expressive-writing protocol. We constructed a permanent metabolic sink by pushing muscle tissue to the brink of failure.
Yep.
And finally, we shielded the entire cellular network by teaching the genetics to produce their own antioxidants via precision thymoquinone.
And notice how true biological resilience is not achieved by coddling the human system.
What do you mean?
Well, consider the mechanisms we've unpacked today. Whether you are forcing a muscle fiber to the absolute point of mechanical failure to force it to grow, or starving a brain of sleep to force it to radically upregulate its energy transporters, or aggressively confronting your darkest emotional traumas on a piece of paper solely to destroy them. Lasting health requires exposing yourself to acute, highly structured stress.
It's about adaptation.
Exactly. That deliberate exposure is how you force the baseline of the human machine to evolve.
It is about intelligently tuning the entire system, not just pouring high-octane fuel into a deteriorating chassis. Well, thank you for joining us on this custom deep dive. Your mandate for this week is straightforward. Do not attempt to overhaul your entire existence by tomorrow morning.
Please don't.
Review these sources, select just one protocol. Maybe you adjust the protein on your breakfast plate, or maybe you sit down with a timer and a pen for 15 minutes tonight. Pick one, apply the stress, and start upgrading your baseline. We will catch you on the next one.